everybody, welcome back to Feedback Loop. I'm Jeremy.
And I'm Joey.
And this week we're talking about Sir Sly's The Rise and Fall of Loverboy, which released April this year, 2021, for those who are listening in the future, or those who are listening in the past. If time travel becomes a thing, I guess maybe.
How can you listen to the past, though, because we haven't released the episode
No,
yet?
they can listen to this episode in the past. Like someone from the future downloads the episode on their phone or something and then goes back to the past and then is listening. I don't know. This is not a time travel podcast.
Maybe it should be.
Maybe it should be. Maybe it is in the future.
Oh my god. Feedback loop. It's like a time loop. But...
Yeah, exactly. But yeah, I picked this album just because it came out this year. I've kind of listened to it off and on throughout this year. I'm kind of like, I wouldn't say like I'm a huge fan of Sir Sly, but I saw them. They opened for K-Flay when I saw her in Nashville a few years back. And I was like, yeah, I really like their performance. And then I never really checked out their music outside of the songs that I heard them perform or whatever. And then this album dropped this year. And I was like, yeah, we'll check it out. And I ended up liking the album. And I was like, maybe Joey would be into this kind of thing. So I threw it on the list. And now it has come full feedback loop. And now we're talking about it.
And now we get to see what I think about it. Maybe I think it's like really sour and shitty, or maybe I think it's really just like nice and sweet like honey, but who knows?
Like track number 1, Honey.
Boom, 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 boom. So, okay, full disclaimer. The first time I listened to this album, it was on my TV speakers, not on my normal headphone setup. And
you hated it.
I didn't hate it, but I was like, something about this is not hitting. Like, it didn't click. And I was just like, so part of my notes are written from like that perspective.
How dare you?
But so whenever I went back and listened to it with headphones on, I could hear all the bass and all the extra sounds. There's like, I couldn't pick. Yeah. Like the instruments get really like this nice floaty feel. The guitar gets kind of wonky and it feels like it's an old guitar playing, and like I don't know, at the time whenever I listened to it on my TV speakers I just couldn't get into it, but the more I listened to it with headphones the more I liked it.
You don't have to like everything, Joey. It's okay.
Well, so I did I had a progression with this album where it's the rise and fall of Loverboy. It was kind of more the rise of me liking the album.
and then the fall of you not liking the album.
Of me hating the album. It's terrible.
But yeah, like you said, it kind of has these weird like droopy, it kind of sounds like a reversed maybe clip on loop that just kind of like feels droopy and like, I don't know, warped, I guess, in some way. There's clean guitar kind of playing the same riff that is being played in reverse or whatever, which is kind of a cool effect, I think. But yeah, it's overall kind of minimal. I suppose there's not a lot of craziness going on for a while, and then his voice comes in, and I'm curious what you think of his voice. I know I'm a lot pickier with vocals, but he has a pretty interesting / distinct voice, I think.
So he has a voice that I've listened to a lot of like indie type music, and I feel like his voice sounds like a version of like the indie singers that you would hear back in like the early 2010s, but just like his own version of it, I guess. Like I kept thinking in my head on several parts of this album, like his voice reminded me of somebody else that I listened to and like a lot, but I couldn't quite hit it, but I finally got it later in the album, and I'll reveal when we get to that point.
Oh, baby.
But
I like this setup.
But I do like the play that he does between like natural singing and then we'll just like add auto tune in, and there's another kind of effect that goes on with the vocals that I don't think it's done in this song, but it's done in a few other songs that I like, and I'll talk about that whenever we get there, but I like his voice. So.
Okay. It sounds like you have a lot more to say about tracks that are not this track, but lyrically, on the surface, this is interesting. This whole album, I think, I'm still not 100% on the lyrical content of the album as an album, I suppose, because on the surface, this one it seems like it's a simple love song talking about how he kind of wishes to be back with a former lover back in Canada or whatever, which is where they're from. But due to the nature of the music in this track, I was kind of conflicted and thinking, well, maybe there's some like something else going on a little bit darker that was maybe playing around drug use, because I'm Amy. He says knock down a J and play Eugene, which I'm not 100% sure if that's like a euphemism, knocking down a J, but he says like I'm hot, never felt this sunny. So like I don't know, there's just something about it, and the music being drippy and the auto tune section kind of taking a turn that kind of made me think that there was drug use in it, and then I kind of like go back and forth with it throughout the first half of this album.
Yeah, so for all of the people out there, you're gonna learn something, but in like the cool hip lingo, a J
Slang.
is a euphemism for a joint.
That's what I was thinking.
It's a marijuana cigarette for you people out there.
It doesn't sound right to my naive brain. Knock down a J. That
Yeah,
doesn't, because when you're usually when someone's saying like knocking down or knocking back, right? They're talking about drinking.
yeah,
Like knock down a shot or something. Like that
yeah.
makes sense to me.
I
But I
mean,
guess it's just the context in which I've heard it, I suppose.
I've never heard that specific phrasing. It could be a Canada thing. It could be I'm just like fucking out of the loop
Canadians.
because I'm an old person. Like how like dads or whatever say like the grass or something. Like
Yeah,
nobody.
the devil's grass.
Yeah, it's like what? But it's probably just one of those things. But yeah. But
Okay.
that's I got that too. Like I couldn't tell if he was talking about like a woman that he wanted to be with
Mhm.
or drugs, but yeah, like
There's
this
also a
album.
third. There's a third element to this album that kind of comes in more as the album goes on, that I think can also kind of maybe be applied here, and that's religion and faith.
Yeah, definitely.
Because a lot of this, I mean, I guess spoilers for the rest of the album. We're now album loop, and we're not doing track by track. That's not true. We're still going to track by track. But like a lot of the album is him. It's kind of this meta like breakup album, but it's breaking up with a girl and also breaking up with religion, and also maybe to some degree breaking up with drugs or a former version of himself in some ways. So I think there's a lot of layers to it that kind of obscures what the lyrics are trying to say, I guess.
Yeah.
And well, I don't know if obscure is the right way, because I mean it's just it's multifaceted, I suppose, what he's talking about throughout this album.
Yeah, I mean, he definitely has some layers. This album's a fucking onion for sure. Shrek would approve.
10 out of 10 Shrek approved. You heard it here.
Hell yeah.
We need to get Shrek as a guest to talk about his favorite onions. I mean
Yes.
albums.
Yeah, well, I mean, both, honestly.
Both. Track number 2 is Loverboy. I could not dig us out of the Shrek hole.
Yeah, I'm sorry I even took us there, but I hear multifaceted. It makes my mind think of layers, and layers are onions and
Or cakes.
Shrek.
Or
Well,
ogres.
yeah, no, I mean cakes. That's fine. That's a layer thing, I guess. But so Loverboy, it starts off with like children playing in the background. Like there's like some cool background ambience, which
Yeah.
I don't like. It just stuck out to me. It really doesn't.
Yeah.
I don't know if it means anything in the grander sense of the album. It's just nice. But this is where I fully decided what album we're doing next week,
Okay.
and
Okay.
I'm not going to tell everybody what it is yet. You know what it is, I guess.
I do.
But
maybe we should stop establishing it beforehand.
You know what?
It'll just always be a surprise.
I think we should. Let's do that. That sounds fun. Mix
Too
things
late.
up.
Too late this week and too late next week, because
But
we're kind of, for behind the scenes. We're kind of like pre-recording a few episodes because I'm going to be unavailable for a few weeks. So we already know the next at least 2 albums.
yeah, but it's we'll do it eventually. But
in a month or so, we'll come back and it'll be a mystery to me when Joey picks an album, and vice versa.
And just to be clear, the vocals and like some of the music doesn't really like sound much like next week's pick, but it just like that's just
The
where my
vibe.
head went. Yeah. But this one, it's a little bit more like, I guess, boppier than the first one, where there's like some claps in the background for a beat that kind of give it a little bit more of an upbeat sound, I guess. The acoustic guitar is more in the forefront, and I like the acoustic guitar. Like, I like the guitar playing on this album. Like, I just like how it's used. It's usually really crisp whenever they use it, and it just sounds nice. It makes me feel good on the inside.
I agree. I literally wrote the gritty acoustic guitar over some hip hoppy beat just feels good.
Yeah.
So we're on the same page there. But yeah, I also in this song I really like the sound they got from the drum machine. It sounds very tight. I love the snare that they have on it. Just like I don't know, there's a lot musically on this album that I like, and I stopped describing it as we go on because like they develop a sound and they establish it, and it's not as interesting to talk about over and over again, kind of a thing. But yeah, I really enjoy a lot of the music elements on this album, including this song.
Yeah. I kind of did the same thing because they definitely have their sound, and it's a
Yeah,
good sound. I don't like. I really like the music. I don't. I think I like the music more than some of the lyrical content, at least
yeah.
on the album. But it's as speaking of lyrical content, you know,
Nailed it.
since we can't segue into each song, we're gonna segue into lyrical content. Whatever. It kind of continues the same general vibe like from the first one, where I don't know what he's talking about. He's talking about a general relationship with something, with
Yeah,
a woman. It seems like on surface level it would be a woman,
right.
but it also sounds like some sort of vice that he could be like really I guess not dependent on, but he
Yeah,
really
I think that's a key, that he's not dependent, or at least
not.
seeming not dependent on it,
Yeah.
because that comes up later in the album. But at this point, I was like, okay, maybe I was looking too deep about Honey, and maybe it is just legitimately about a girl, because this track seems to be more along that line where he specifically says girl, and he acknowledges that he can't be her everything, kind of a thing, and that he just wants to be her lover boy, kind of thing. He just wants love, which is kind of an interesting. I took that to mean more of like he's okay with her being independent because that's mature, right?
Yeah.
And independence is attractive, and it's a mature step of your relationship, knowing that you don't have to be side by side doing everything together for the rest of forever, kind of a thing. And he knows that her life is not going to revolve around him. He just wants to be a part of it, kind of a
Yeah.
thing, which I kind of have. It makes it interesting, I think, at least from what I was drawing from closer to the end of the album. But that's kind of the vibe that I was getting from this song.
Yeah, this album definitely takes a turn lyrical content wise. Like it hits a point where it dives, I think.
Yeah.
Not dives as in gets like badly written, but but like content
Dives
wise.
headfirst into the pool of emotions and struggles
Yeah, but
with the three topics, I guess, on this album.
yeah, like at least I guess surface wise and as far as I'm willing to dig, I would say this song is most likely about just like wanting a legitimate mature relationship
Yeah,
with someone who can hold their own in life, I guess.
yeah, and it's a sham, but you know we'll get there. We will
Yeah,
get there
yeah.
because sometimes it. I don't know. I got
We
nothing.
welcome the pressure of creating a segue for every single song, but sometimes we don't land. But we do welcome the pressure.
Yeah, and sometimes we fumble into one, and someone saves it, like Joey saved for track number 3. Welcomes the pressure.
Skip it about bop.
Killing it. This one starts with some like natural acoustic sounding drums with almost this kind of like swing feel, and then the synths come in and the track begins. So I'm not really sure. I think there was actually on Genius somebody had lyrics for an intro that they played live
Mm-hmm.
to it, which I don't remember. I guess I have it right here. I could pull it up. But like, I thought that was interesting because I haven't heard the live version of the song, but they felt the need to put it in the Genius lyrics, which it kind of gives some context, I guess, lyrically. But we'll get there. I really like the dripping synth feel that is used on this track and throughout a lot of the album. There's a lot of like ambient, kind of distant boops and synthing noise and stuff that just kind of like sets the overall tone for the album, I think. And their blend of like the guitars and the synths and the vocals, it just, I don't know, the general vibe of this album and the song, it hits right with me, and kind of almost gives me a little bit of like Blue October vibes for some of their songs on
Ooh.
Foiled. But
Oh, that's nice.
that's kind of where my mind kind of goes for this album, I suppose. Not exactly, because there's a lot more of like electronic elements in Sir Sly's music, but yeah, the bridge comes in on this track, and this is what I consider to be like classic Sir Sly bridge, where like it strips everything but just leaves the drums and the bass driving, and then the vocals go like la 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 la. That's a very Sir Sly thing in my mind.
Yeah,
which I'm not complaining about. It kind of has a nice transitional feel.
Yeah, I definitely like. There was a point later where I pointed that out because I haven't heard any of their other music really.
Right.
And by the end of the album, I was like, I think this might be just like their thing.
Yeah.
And I guess it is. So it's cool. The guitar work in this song as well, like it's more in the background, and I think it's an electric guitar rather than an acoustic. But it's got like this nice, bright and glassy sound that I really like. And I don't know, man. Like I feel like these guys can make anything from like electric music or electronic music to indie rock.
Yeah.
And they show that on this album. And
they're constantly kind of like flowing between the two, I think.
And I mean, this song it feels more fun, I guess. It feels a little bit more dancey, I guess. I like his voice even more on this album or on this track, and I don't know. This is one where once again listening on my TV speakers versus listening on my headphones, it was like listening to a completely different song.
Yeah. Lesson being kids, don't listen on shitty speakers if you can avoid it.
Don't even listen on speakers. Always listen on headphones.
I mean, if you got a nice sound system, use it. Like you can get like a subwoofer
so.
and that stuff to balance that stuff. Generally speaking, though, phone speakers, monitor, and TV speakers probably not great sound quality.
Yeah, that's
at least not for music. I mean, I feel like to some degree, TV and movies are kind of like balanced around that kind of a thing, but music is definitely not one of those things.
That's probably true.
Lyrically, though,
there you go.
For Welcome to the Pressure, I kind of like I reverted again. So like on Loverboy, I'm like, okay, well maybe I was looking too far into Honey. At this point, I'm like, okay, I take it all back. There's definitely some drug reference happening, and my gut instinct was kind of more accurate, I think. But it doesn't mean that the prior songs weren't also about a lover. It's just kind of the feelings that are expressed in those songs kind of seem greatly exaggerated by drug use, perhaps. This song specifically is more introspective, and he's talking about the pressure of being like so invested in his career that if he fails as a musician, then he has nothing else to fall back on, and that pressure kind of like it simultaneously like pushes them to work harder and make better music, but also kind of maybe forces them into being more susceptible to drug abuse and stuff, and which is super common along like celebrities and musicians and stuff.
Yeah, I mean, at that point, it's like you said, what else are you going to do if it doesn't work? Like he talks about in the song, like dropping out of high school or dropping out. I don't know if he specifically says high school, but he says dropping out of school
right
to be in the band. And it's like, okay, like you've devoted just about everything into making this work, and if it doesn't, what else is there?
Yeah, there is nothing else, which obviously is a huge amount of pressure. Like,
yeah,
you've gotta really give it your all to make it. It seems.
But some people operate under the mindset that if you're not giving it your all, if you still have one foot out the door, like you're not gonna be your best, which I don't know how much I agree with, because I feel like that's gonna take a pretty big toll on you mentally.
Which is why musicians maybe revert to drugs so much.
Yeah. And because I was about to say something that was very reckless, so I wouldn't have been a good citizen if I said that, so we'll just move on.
Yeah, we're all pretty shitty citizens from time to time, I suppose, but at least you censor yourself so that we can continue this podcast by talking about track number 4, Citizen.
And what I'll tell you what it is afterwards, because it was just like it's not anything bad, but I was like, I shouldn't have said that. But so this one, after I've been explaining what I should have not said or whatever, but it starts out with like a huge fucking bass, like it's just like boomy, and then it breaks down into just an acoustic guitar and like a kick heavy drum part. And I mean, I feel like he sings higher on this one, like he still does in the others, but I just notice it more, I guess, on this one.
Yeah.
And this one though has a cool guitar solo, which I'm guessing is where it features Gary Clark Jr. And I'm guessing that's where he comes in.
I believe so.
But yeah, I like this one. It seems more rock inspired, and I'm all for indie rock. So it's cool. It's a cool one. It gets a pass from me in my book.
I agree. I really like the song as well. And like I said, Gary Clark Jr. has a pretty long like drawn out solo at the end of the song. Drawn out not in a bad way, but like he covers a lot of ground, I suppose, with the solo, and it kind of like starts slow and then builds and builds and builds until the song just kind of ends at his guitar solo end. Lyrically, this is another one I wasn't like super sure on because it seemed kind of vague, but I think this is what starts that kind of not necessarily anti-Christian message, but like it starts changing the tone of the album to revolve more around his spiritual and religious adventures, I guess, or experiences, his journey. And like he talks about praying for help, and it seems like it maybe worked but also limited him in ways, because he says, "Oh Holy Spirit, can you hear us? I feel lifted, I feel fearless." But he's also kind of bad mouthing it and like saying that he doesn't want to be a good boy and keep his mouth shut and keeping quiet out of fear instead of being open about what he's thinking, kind of thing, which is very much like a legitimate like concern when people are losing their religion, I suppose, where like you have this moment of like, okay, like I'm tired of being told what to think and how to act and behave when and like shunning these urges or these thoughts that are contradictory to what the church believes.
Yeah, this one, like a few things specifically hit me.
Yeah.
Like where he's talking about what was it? On the 5, I see a sign. You need Jesus, and it just makes me like. Then I sigh as my insides start their screaming, and it's
Yeah.
like there's so many times where like where we live, and I all over the Midwest, probably the South too. Like I don't know,
Yeah.
but you're just driving along and you just see a big old fucking picture of Jesus on the side of the road on a billboard that's like, "You're going to hell."
Yeah. Or like just painted on the side of a barn,
Yeah,
shit like that.
and you're just like, well, that's fucking great. Okay, like it's totally cool. And then it made like I feel like this song is his realization, at least later in the song, where it's like the people who use religion in that way are usually like the, I don't want to say the wrong type of people, but kind of
Yeah,
like
no, for sure.
they're the people that kind of go against what the actual meaning of the religion is supposed to be. Where I mean, not to get too political, but the song it
No, I'm
gets
here for it.
it goes there.
I'm going to take it a step further after you're done.
Okay,
So
okay,
feel free.
cool.
Just let loose.
So yeah, the second verse it starts off, "Little red hat, signal white pride. What are you thinking? What are you thinking?" And I mean, it ends with, "You'll never make anything great again, and you're not my friend. Can I get an amen?" Where it's like talking about him realizing, obviously he's like referencing the "Make America Great Again" hats, Donald Trump, his followers, and like how religion gets so twisted in that circle, where it's like it's
Yeah.
used as an excuse to be a shitty person, really. And I think this is him like kind of coming to terms with that, being like, I don't want that. I don't want to be that. I don't want to be lumped in, like, and him seeing kind of the twisted nature of that, I feel like. And maybe this is me putting my own spin on it, putting my own thoughts into his head, but that's kind of what I got, where it's
No,
like the really,
I think you're right with them. I think you're
because
saying the same thing.
I mean it's just such a disconnect whenever he's starting off the song praying and then being like, shit, is this what I'm praying to? Like,
Yeah.
is this really what I have to go along with to be part of this, I
It's
guess.
fucked up.
Yeah.
It's just totally derailing us. If you don't want to hear us talk about religion, I was kind of going to save this for another later discussion, but it kind of became more relevant, I guess, during this week than I expected to. This past week, I saw on Facebook. I have a friend on Facebook who is like a youth minister at churches. He's a cool guy. I don't have anything against him as a person, but he shares a lot of religious things, and most of it's pretty level-headed. But there was one that stood out to me. He shared a quote from someone, and the quote is, "Hell will be filled with people who didn't smoke, didn't cuss, and may have even been baptized. Why? Because none of these things make someone a Christian." Right. So he's saying like even if you're living straight edge, right? You don't cuss, you don't smoke, you don't get baptized, you can still go to hell. And I was thinking about this. Why is that the message?
Yeah.
Why is it not the opposite, that heaven will have people that smoke and cuss and may not have been baptized, kind of thing, because it seems
That's not
like
the point.
yeah, it's not so much that they're trying to make the point that faith matters more than your actions. They don't give a shit about that. They don't care to be inclusive. They're just trying to scare people into religion because scaring people gives you power over them, kind of thing. And if you were to just accept people instead of like scaring people with hell, saying like, no, it's okay if you smoke, you can still go to heaven. They're saying no, like even if you don't smoke, you're going to hell because it gives them more power. And I think it's fucked up. And religion's bullshit. I hate it.
Yeah, I was actually having a discussion that, I mean, it's whatever, fuck it. Like
Yeah,
I was
we're
having
already off the rails.
I was having a discussion, and it made me think about like the inverse, because that was always my thing. It's like, even when you're having your own thoughts, it's so ingrained in you that the number one thing you're not supposed to do is question.
Yeah.
That it's like, or else you're going to be damned for eternity. That it's like, oh my god,
It's
it's
100% fear mongering.
it's meant to keep you in that way. And I feel like it's because if you taught the other way, that's like, yeah, as long as you just live your life as a good person, you're gonna get into heaven and
Yeah.
whatever. And it's like, I feel like the reason that's not taught is because that would cause more people to just be like, well, then why do I have to do all this other stupid shit? Like,
Yeah.
I mean, can't I just be a good person? Like, it's
And don't get me wrong, there are a lot of like I would quote unquote good Christian people that are very accepting
yeah,
of like they're not going to judge you for like smoking, they're not going to judge you for cussing and for
they're not gonna judge
sinning and
you
all that stuff because
for being gay,
right,
for being just generally different.
being different, yeah, because at the end of the day they believe that that's God's place and that's great. I'm all about that shit. Obviously I don't believe in it, but I think that is the best example of a Christian, I think, in my opinion, which is kind of like where I'm not trying to throw my buddy under the bus that I'm friends with on Facebook. Like he's generally level headed, but just that quote that he shared kind of spurred me to like think, why is it always fear mongering instead of acceptance, right? And it's just kind of fucked up that that's how they have to convince people to quote unquote be good, is by scaring them into being good because they're not naturally going to be good in the eyes of God or in the eyes of whatever. It's power, and it's fucking shitty as hell.
Yeah, and one day, hopefully, I can become numb to all the bullshit. But
It's not
until
gonna happen. I hope I
until
never do, honestly, because
actually, yeah,
it's worth being pissed off about. Track number 5 is numb. You made
I
a
was
segue, and I'm still on this fucking angry level.
no,
So
I was making a segue, and you're right. I hope I never get numb to it, because yeah, that's bullshit. Like, I'm I'm
fucking stupid.
I hope I always feel the same level of feels that I get whenever I see that shit, because it's like, if there is a God out there who is going to take a good person in every way and not allow them to just like have a good afterlife, if there is one,
Yeah.
because of some trivial shit like that, fuck that guy.
Fuck you, God.
Whoa.
Track number 5, numb. This one has some really like soft organs, kind of setting the tone, being a lot more reflective and somber than the more upbeat introduction to the album. There's not a beat at all in this one. There's not really a super prominent melody, and it's just a guy being honest and vulnerable, kind of a thing, which he does a few times on this album.
Mm-hmm.
I really like this song, and because I don't know, it packs a lot of like emotional power, and I don't know, I kind of find it relatable and such. It's
Yeah,
fucking cool.
this is definitely one of my favorite songs as well. It's kind of just more minimal. He's yeah, just bearing it all. It's just him singing over like the synthy ambience in the background, and the guitar coming
Yeah,
in. And I mean, it's just kind of like a song where it just lays low. The music doesn't change up too much. It's all lyrics forefront, and like the lyrics are good too. Like,
yeah,
he really just kind of lets it all out there. It's very personal, and the way he's singing, you can tell it's personal.
yeah. And this is I think the first track that is like full on pulling in the direction of like talking about him leaving Christianity and his Christian upbringing, which has led him to be, maybe not solely led him, but like the song's about him being depressed and alone and isolated, which is partially to blame on his Christian upbringing and the fact that he's leaving that and kind of thing. And he's just talking about how he wants to break out of the numbness that he's feeling and live life and love someone without being judged as unworthy by, you know, his religious friends and family or whoever.
Yeah, it's man, the second verse too, it's I've always wanted what was out of reach. It's not your fault the way you brainwashed me. Now I'm stranded under all this shame with no God and no good luck. I'll never measure up. It's like he's just like essentially feels like he's just out in the middle of it on
Yeah.
his own with literally no life raft. Like he's just
Yeah, and I think
shit.
that's where like the three, you know, the drugs, the lover, and the Jesus of this album, like I think a lot of this album is really coming from a place of isolation from those things, whereas in his former life or his former years in this life, I suppose, he has been very much involved with, you know, a lover or having God or maybe even doing drugs and stuff, and it's this is kind of like him isolating from those things and realizing that he has nothing of himself without those things, because so much of his identity was maybe wrapped up in those things, like, which is huge, like even just from a religion standpoint, that's a huge thing that happens when someone quote unquote loses their religion, because especially I think he was an evangelical, which is someone that like they view their purpose is to convert other people to their religion, kind of a thing. So if
Yeah.
you live like that and then one day you decide, no, this isn't me anymore, like you have no bearing on who you are as a person, which I think a lot of the later half of this album really dives into. But it kind of gets like this seems to be like the domino falling that starts the whole chain reaction of the rest of the album, I think.
Yeah, I agree. Like it's man, it's just I feel for you, dude. Like
Yeah, yeah. We you are not alone in your struggles. There's a lot of people that have been there and are going to go there in the future. So it's cool that it's always nice to have music that is so relatable
for
and
sure.
can help you through shit like that. Not that either of us are going through this currently, but
Yeah.
it feels good to like, I don't know, we're both sad boys, so like hearing other people struggling with the things that we've already struggled with or that we've come to terms with, kind of thing, it's kind of cathartic, I guess, in ways.
Yeah, it can at least help you out to the other side where you can just kind of sit around being like, man, are we having any fun yet? Like, all this shit's been just crazy. Like, I just
Joey,
want fun.
Joey, you're killing these segues tonight. I don't think I've done any of them yet. Track number 6 is "Are We Having Any Fun?"
Bada bada boom.
But boom.
I'm gonna make a little sound like that every time I do a segue, I guess.
Yeah, it's the segue sound. We need to get we need to clip that and just edit it in after every segue.
Hell yeah, that won't get old.
Sure, they'll deal with it. It'll be a thing. It'll be a meme. It's fine.
Yeah, there we go.
Maybe we'll do it once per episode.
Yeah, as long as it's a meme, nobody will care.
Exactly. Track number 6. Are We Having Any Fun? This one kind of resets the tone after the pause that Numb brought to the album. It has kind of it's a more fun and upbeat melody kind of a thing. It's got some chill vibes to it, but it's definitely more lighthearted than Numb was. And then it kind of like when the bridge comes, it kind of like has that darkness creeping in a little bit, and then it gets expelled when the chorus comes in and just kind of like lets it go. Which I'm going to go kind of right into the lyrics for this. I'll let you talk about your experience with the song as well. But like, I feel like this is about his immediate experiences after deciding to leave his religion, where he's not really like sure how he feels about what he's experiencing, and a lot of the things that he's doing and trying feel foreign to him, and he's kind of trying to find his way, and he's heard about these fun things, and he's just kind of like going along with it to see what happens, and he's not really like sure who he is or what he's doing or why he's doing it, kind of a thing, which is why the song is like, "Are we having any fun?" Because he doesn't know if it's fun, kind of a thing.
Yeah, and I'll like I like the song. I mean, like it's pretty like the beginning, like you said, it's pretty much like bass, drums, and like him singing over it. The chorus hits, and it gets like kind of a bigger sound with him
Yeah,
talking about like sad topics over that kind of more brighter sound, and then there's like a really cool swooshy sounding key part in the bridge that's behind some like extra plucky guitar. But
Yeah.
I really hit with the lyrics as well on this one, where it's like, you're stuck in the aftermath. He's stuck in the aftermath of like this realization or this journey that he's begun. And yeah, I mean, it's really just he starts off with a theme that kind of follows throughout the rest of the album, where he's like, what does happy look like? Is
Yeah.
this happiness real? Is this new feel like he's only had, I'm guessing, like, if you, since you said he's an or was an evangelical, like super into it,
Right.
like, the glory of God, the happiness that comes from your faith, all of that, like, and it's like tied into every single part of your life. And if that's taken out, you're like, shit, if none of that was real, like,
Right.
was
What
any of that,
is?
yeah,
Yeah.
was any of the happiness that I've ever felt in my life real? And how do I get back there? Can I even get back there? Can I, like, what do I do now? All these heathens that I used to see out there living it up, having a good time, I'm doing the same things,
And I'm not
and
having fun.
yeah, it feels bad.
Yeah.
So it's just a really big search for self-discovery.
Yeah, which I think most of the rest of this album is kind of about. That's my one complaint, I think, with this album specifically, is that it it feels like a lot of the later half of this album is just kind of repeating the same thing. But
Yeah,
I don't know. Maybe it's a hot take.
I don't think it is. I think it was, I mean, just a part that I'm guessing was a really big part of his life,
For sure.
and he just wrote a lot of songs about it. My thing was like, I don't know, like, it's called The Rise and Fall of Loverboy,
Hmm.
and I'm trying to wonder
There's
what.
not much of a rise. It's just all
Yeah,
falling.
yeah, it's like, from the beginning, like, is the rise his journey? Is he talking about how the rise was him being spiritual, and then whenever he lost it, he fell? Or is he like, because at the, this will be something for, I guess, for the end of the album. But yeah, the name of the album kind of confused me after
We'll talk
hearing all
about
the
it.
lyrics. Yeah,
We'll get through it because we're only halfway through this album.
yeah.
About halfway through this episode. Track number 7. Thanks.
Thanks for,
THX,
yeah,
like texting
with a period
with a
also,
period. Yeah,
because it's
they do a
stylized.
few. Yeah, they do a few stylized song titles on this album.
This one is the shortest track on the album
Hmm.
at 1 minute and 54 seconds. It's nice. It's got this like nice reversey, warbly sound coming in. It's kind of warm and comforting almost. Like the
Yeah,
music, it just sounded super soothing, even though there was, like, it got like a little wonky at times where it was like I couldn't tell if it was doing that just kind of to stay in the loop that it was creating, or if it was supposed to be adding in some sort of tension
yeah,
at those little spots. But it just kind of stays in that warm, nice feel for the whole song. Like there's some backing, like light percussion showing up later as the song progresses, but nothing like too crazy.
yeah. There's not a whole lot musically going on. Lyrically, I feel like this is kind of the crash of his excitement of the prior track, where like if in the last track was him like going out and living life in this new and exciting way and trying to figure out what works, this is him realizing that none of it's really fixed him, right? Like he's free of religion now, and he's kind of like reflecting on the bad things that he's done and the way he's acted in the past, and kind of beating himself up about it. And it's just kind of like after that high of being free of religion, he's having time to now sit with his own thoughts and think of all of the shit that led him to this point, I guess, and he's not happy about it.
Yeah, it's like, it sounded like he was trying to like apologize to the people near him
Yeah,
for his actions, and he was just like, thanks for being along for the ride,
right.
sorry. Like, I don't know what I can do other than just say I'm sorry.
Yeah, so that's half of the lyrics. It's just him saying he's sorry.
Yeah, but I mean, sorry's cool as long as you follow up on it. Like,
It's true. You can't just apologize and keep doing the same thing and saying
yeah.
sorry every time.
But this Material Boy, like, I don't know if he fully understands it. We'll have to listen to the rest of the album. Like, he might just be, he's not very spiritual. He's a Material Boy
Right.
for sure.
Just like he discusses in track number 8, Material Boy.
Boom.
There's no ba. I'll
No,
put it in
that
the
that one
post.
was
No,
just boom
I'm not
that
gonna.
time. It'll always start with a B though, I guess, because
Oh yeah.
that's just the sound my mouth makes. Apparently.
When you're excited about a
Yeah.
segue that you pulled
Boom,
off.
boom, boom, boom.
Track number 8, Material Boy. This one's a very 80s track, and I'm kind of curious how you feel about that because, I mean, we've talked recently about 80s music, and I feel like it's intentionally kind of got that vibe. As such, there's not a lot like musically that was super interesting to me on this one.
Yeah, I mean, I like the sound, but
Yeah,
it was kind of like weird to hear it out of nowhere. But I mean, this was the biggest song on the album, and I think that that sound is probably the reason why, because
I
it's
didn't know
just
that.
it's
Cool.
yeah, it was because I was actually listening to it with Alyssa whenever I had it on the TV, and we were kind of just jumping around after a few of the songs,
Yeah,
and she was like, "Oh, that's the biggest one," and we listened to this one, and I was like, "Yeah, I can see why," because it's got the synth wavy '80s
yeah.
deal that's a lot of people are liking right now, and I'm liking it too. I mean, I like the song. It just didn't. It's
Yeah,
like,
it kind of falls flat of what it's trying to get a little bit, I think.
yeah, like I like their sound, and this seems like they try to inject the '80s sound into their sound, which like I appreciate the effort, but
Yeah.
yeah, it
I think it's kind of intentional in that, like, I mean, the song's Material Boy. He's singing about how he's not satisfied with money and physical things anymore, even though that's what he's thought his whole life was around, right? He's a material boy living in a spiritual world, is like the whole hook kind of a thing, where he's like, I, I've made my way in music, right? I'm making money, I'm buying things, but guess what? I'm not happy because I don't have the connections, the spiritual connections to like the people around him in the world, and it's all been focused inward on greed and stuff. He also casts a lot of shame at American greed and politics in this
yeah.
song, and just like I don't know, on a grander scale, just feeling soulless and disconnected, no matter like how much money you make, kind of thing, which is pretty common theme I think in a lot of music, but like I don't know, it kind of like reminded me because it's kind of an 80s sounding track of like that time of life for some reason that I wasn't in. And it just seemed very like material. Like just even saying material boy sounds like a very 80s thing to me.
For sure. Like there I think the '80s was definitely like an age of, and this
Things.
is, yeah, like this is just totally me having never experienced it,
Right.
but it seems like a time of excess of consumerism, of like, you, I don't know, big dreams and whatever, like,
Bigness.
yeah, bigness, big money, Tony Montana, cocaine,
Yeah, there you
something, I
go.
don't
Yeah, I guess
know.
that's true. The whole like
Like,
all of that like Vice City stuff, like it's all glitz and glamour and sports cars and neon lights and go-go dancing.
is Tony Montana, is he a dude, like, is that a dude, like a
He's in
Vice gang guy?
Scarface. Yeah,
Is that him?
that's
Okay,
him.
because uh we had a D&D campaign where there was Montana something, and I was like,
No,
wait
no,
a
no,
second.
no. That was Montana Smith,
Okay.
because the player didn't want to explicitly rip off Indiana Jones, so he made Montana Smith.
I was wondering, because I was like, did that just seep into my like brain?
No,
And but
Tony
okay,
Montana was. I'm pretty sure. Now you have me questioning. Pretty sure Tony Montana was Scarface, right?
that's what I thought. So we'll go with it. Two people says it's right. That can't be wrong.
Can't be wrong. And two of two people. There's nobody else involved here.
Yeah,
There's
100% of the people asked agreed.
exactly. And nobody's going to listen, so they're not going to contradict us. So we're
Hell,
just going to believe that we're factually correct.
we can just make up whatever we want, and it's right, because in this universe, nobody's gonna
It's
contradict
true.
us.
We are gods here. We're sick, sick, sick gods.
And we're also talking about track number 9, sick, sick, sick. But like the last sick is like sick, like Latin, like you're correcting something.
It's like the editing sick
Yeah.
kind of a thing. This one's another like slow plotting synth ambience kind of thing with auto-tune vocals. A lot of his like songs snippets like this remind me a lot of like Kanye and his kind of like auto-tuned slow like ultralight beams kind of, what is it,
Mm-hmm.
Life of Pablo, that kind of era kind of thing, and also a lot of maybe like the 808s and Heartbreak era of Kanye are kind of influence on this album, I think. I don't know how much Kanye he actually listened to, but that's kind of where my mind goes for a lot of these like auto-tune monologue kind of song sections, and this whole song is that. The song has a great evolution to it. I really like the growth throughout this whole song with like just the beat and then the acoustic comes in and just like the overall feeling of the song just kind of like progressing feels good to me.
Yeah, I like the music on this one a lot, and I like his voice. It has like a super filtered sound to it,
Yeah,
which is just super cool. I feel like I've heard this song too before, like
interesting.
whenever I was listening to it. I don't know where I would have heard it ever, but because it just came out like what 2 months ago,
Yeah,
and I had never listened to Sir Sly before this, so I don't know where it would have been. But
maybe you are the time traveler and you went to the future and you listened
sometimes,
to this.
sometimes I think that, and sometimes I think my brain just gets wired wrong because it's like I feel like I'm in constant deja vu sometimes.
Yeah, I was gonna say it's kind of like an inverse deja vu thing, right? Where you think well, I guess it's just regular deja vu if you think you've heard something before, even if it well, I guess it doesn't matter the context. It's just the thinking that you've heard it before is the
Yeah,
deja vu part of it. So I don't know what I'm trying to say here.
this song also, it was, I guess, one of the more prominent examples of the other vocal thing that I was talking about, where there's like a really low pitched
Yeah,
vocal, like somebody repeating words behind him, where it's like in the fourth verse where he's talking about like I'm like Dior Osiris, like laundry still hanging, and then a voice comes back and says bloody bloody, like it's
right.
kind of talking. I didn't know if that was supposed to be like a, I don't know, like his brain, like what, some
Yeah,
fucked
or
up
his
part of his brain.
conscience, or the maybe even it could be like the I don't know, just the whole religious part of him, I suppose, the spiritual part of him, kind of cutting in and antagonizing him for leaving religion or whatever.
Yeah, I mean, I definitely could see that. I know whenever I used to think as a child that my brain, what like the voice you hear in your head, just thoughts. I
Mm-hmm.
thought that was God, like because
I
I
mean,
didn't.
who's to say it's not?
Well, that like people would always like you'd always hear like in school in your my religion class or whatever, they'd be like people talking to God and you hear God and you speak with God, and I was like, well, I hear a voice in my head, that's probably God. And then like as I was like coming out of it, I guess, and realizing things, I still couldn't shake that thought that there was
Right.
like God in my head, just like, what the fuck are you doing, dude?
That's
Stop
interesting.
it. Come back. And I'm just
That's
like,
it's like that's
what?
just it's insane to me that like that's the level of brainwash that happens when kids are like brought up in a religion. I never experienced that myself. I don't even know if I like ever thought anything other than oh it's just me thinking kind of a
Yeah,
thing, but like it makes sense. And if you had that experience, I'm sure you're not the only one who ever thought that way or felt that way. And even like to some degree I can see that in this album as being like a way that he felt, and something that would make him constantly like question his decision to like leave his religion kind of a thing, which it's kind of crazy that like how big of an impact I guess adults have over children when
yeah. I
they're
mean,
like because they're in their formative years and they're so easy to manipulate and convince of anything
they
that
really are just like
can really fuck
soft
someone up.
clay. Yeah, like they're like clay and slow. Whenever you fire clay, you throw it in an oven and it sticks. But kids are like clay that somehow just slowly gets stuck over a while, and
Yeah.
before you know it, they're dried, and you're like, "Fuck,
What
dude,
the fuck did I do?
what what's
I
happening?"
don't remember making that thing.
And it's just nuts, dude. Like they're so like there's things like I will just say something and my daughter will instantly repeat me,
Yeah.
or just like things that I do, like there's things that I do that I don't realize that I do
Yeah,
until I
bad
see her.
habits.
Yeah, until I see her repeating them, and I'm like, oh my god, where'd you learn that? She's
Yeah.
like,
I
I
learned it
learned
from
it from
watching
watching
you.
you. And
Exactly.
I'm just like, oh no, don't become me, please. That's literally the last thing I want for you.
Hey, you turned out pretty good.
Yeah, I guess so.
I like you as a person. We're pretty good friends.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I, I I have a friend. That's okay.
You got a friend in me.
I got a friend in you.
Well, I got a friend that's IMG.
What?
It's track number 10.
Oh, okay.
Back on the podcast. We're still recording. This one has, I thought it was interesting. There's a short little guitar loop that is used in the background underneath like the regular clean guitar track, which is kind of a fun effect. It's got some very menacing bass and like this marching snare beat to it. There's some high pitched vocals samples that are like obviously pitched up of him saying love in and love out, which this whole song has a very dark tone, and then like everything just pieces out and it hangs, and then the song comes back in full force with the first verse, and it like, I don't know, musically the song feels like a rock bottom moment where it's just like so warped and so intense, and then Landon comes in with the second verse and it's like kind of a fast rapped kind of a thing, and then the song just ends and you're just kind of like left sitting like what the fuck just happened kind of a thing. But I really enjoy the sound of this track.
Yeah, I do too, and I think I gotta say the last probably like 5 or 6 songs on this album, as much as they do kind of like follow the same pattern lyrically, like the music and just the feel of them, I really like just the vibe that rides this album out.
I agree.
And it's a nice, like, I don't know. So that love in, love out, that high pitched voice, it reminded me of like a chipmunk type thing. And
don't even fucking bring up the goddamn chipmunks on 6 Speed or whatever.
Okay. But it made me have to go back and listen to that. But this, so this song, it's kind of just like he's out of his mind. Like, it gave me the impression that he's, and this is where I didn't know if the rise and fall thing applied, because this song, it almost seems cyclical, where he's talking about having these self-destructive habits that are kind of like causing him to lose parts of his life because of the self-destructive habits, but then him losing stuff causes the self-destructive habits again, and he's like in this circle where he's just like, he doesn't know, he hates things, he just feels these negative feelings, and he's like, I don't know, he's realizing that he's in a way crafting his own torture. Like whenever he says you invited this by doing what I wouldn't do, Icarus but opposite, this hell I crafted you, like he's flying so low, and he's doing all these things that he never would have done in the past, and he's creating his own version of hell in life, and it's like a self-fulfilling prophecy where he's probably having these doubts where it's like, I left the religion and exactly what I was always told would happen is happening, and now I'm rotting in hell, but it's hell on earth. Like,
that's an interesting take. I like that. I kind of like, I don't know, I really like the song lyrically too, like, which doesn't happen often, granted, but like I don't know, the chorus just like, it says love in, love out, hating you doesn't mean I love myself now, where it kind of like posts this idea of him where he's at the brink of leaving his religion, and he's thinking, okay, if I get out of this cult, then like my life is gonna be so much better, because like it's been holding him back, and then he gets out of it, he takes that step, and he's just falling and falling and falling lower and lower and lower, and he's like, man, like I expected that like leaving you behind, leaving the religion behind would fix me as a person, but surprise, it doesn't, and now I don't even have faith to fall back onto, and so I just kind of keep going down farther and farther, kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's man, it can really fuck you up. That's for sure.
It's scary.
Like,
for sure. Yeah, I mean, especially again because like he was an evangelical Christian. Like that was his life. His religion was his life. And to throw that aside in hopes that your life is going to improve, and then find out that that doesn't fix anything, is like, it's got to be the scariest fucking thing in the world, to just have nothing to cling to. You have no idea who you are or what you like want from life outside of your former religion, and now you don't even have that to fall back to, because like previously, like, yeah, if you get sad you can say, oh well, I have my faith, God will see me through. Now he doesn't even have that. He has literally nobody to turn to, nothing to like fall back on, which I guess maybe could be what he was talking about more as like another layer earlier in the album when we were talking about his career and not having anything else to fall back on. Maybe it was more of an emotional thing as well, where he doesn't have he can't turn back, or he
Yeah.
feels like he can't turn back or doesn't want to turn back, kind of a thing, which is fucking scary. And he's just dying a million little deaths on the way to hell that he's digging for himself, I guess.
Well, at least he could take those little deaths and create track number 11, Little Deaths.
Nailed it. I got a
Boom.
segue in. I got two of them. That
Yeah.
one of them was kind of forced, but that's what I do best, forcing segues.
Hell yeah.
Little
This
Deaths
no.
is
No, that's
I'm,
fine. It's fine.
I'm just cutting you off. See, normally I stop, and then we both sit there for a minute, and then you end up going. This time I'm like, I'm just gonna fucking go for it.
Do
Whatever.
it. Well, you go for it.
It's a nice acoustic led, kind of like indie rock track. There's not really a lot of electronic elements to this one. I really like. There's a clean electric riff that comes in after the chorus that adds a nice dimension, I think, to the song. Whereas mostly like an acoustic thing, and then just having a little fill, a little electric riff kind of thing flows in is really nice.
Yeah, I mean, I really like the music on this song. It's not anything crazy. Like, it sounds like the general feel of this song seems like a more typical kind of older indie rock from like the early 2010s, maybe,
Yeah,
like around that era. And this is where I really figured out that his voice, at least whenever he sings like he does on this song, it reminds me a lot of the guy from Foster the People. And
interesting. Yeah, I can
that's the
see that.
guy. And I mean, I really like Foster the People. I like this song. I like this album, really. So it's super cool. It's fine.
Cool things. Comparing things to other cool things
Hell
is a
yeah.
cool thing.
Everything's super cool all the time. This song, like lyrically though, I I know it's on the single art and everything, but I just could not get cigarette addiction out of my head. Like, I
Yeah,
mean, I know he's talking. I cling to you, or I cling to your lips, or I cling to you like lips cling to a cigarette is a repeated line in this song.
yeah,
I didn't know if he was straight up just talking about nicotine addiction or if he was still continuing the trifecta of potential talking about a girl, talking about religion, talking about other drugs.
yeah.
But this song, it just
Yeah, this
I
this is like this is where it kind of like it looped back for me because we mentioned earlier on in the album how he wanted a mature relationship, and he understood that he couldn't be his partner's everything, kind of a thing. But the song feels very strongly focused on his codependence of other things, right? Whether that's his former lover or God, or cigarettes or a substance, or whatever, where it just like it's such a coin flip where like it makes sense in that like be it earlier in the album when he was talking about having an independent partner, kind of a thing, he wasn't saying that he was independent. He was just saying, yeah, I understand that you want to go off and you want to do your own things, but he never like explicitly said how he felt about that kind of thing. So really it could have just been an extension of him not wanting to upset the person that is like going out and doing more independent things. He's just going along with it because he is so dependent on them, kind of
yeah.
thing. He doesn't want to disturb that balance. But obviously, there's also a religious aspect to it, where like kind of like what I've been saying anyway for the past few tracks is just like having your whole life dedicated to faith and then losing that faith and figuring out that like your whole identity has been taken away from you, essentially, and you need to figure out what you're doing now very quickly, kind of a thing.
Yeah, it's pretty tough. Like, just thinking about any time that I was trying to live my life, figure myself out. Like, I know all I wanted to do was just go cry in the club, like just in the corner somewhere. It was
Yeah,
just, it was
we
rough.
go to so many clubs that we just would do. If we were to cry, it would probably happen in the club.
Yeah, because that's just where we are all the time.
Track number 12. All I want to do is cry in the club.
Boom, another short, nice one here. Like it's what 2 minutes 14 seconds. Boom, little
Yeah,
short
this
thing.
is like the second shortest one on the album.
It's got a wavy feel as well, like the watery kind of next room over feel of the synths
Yeah,
in the opening is pretty cool. I like the vibe. You know, the auto tuned voice adds to it as well. Like, and
yeah,
this song made me think about kind of the auto tune bashing craze back in the day. Not like the
yeah,
song isn't heavily auto tuned or anything. I mean, his voice is clearly auto tuned,
right.
but like I got caught up in that because that's whenever I was in my like listen to real music,
Yeah.
rock and
Oh, if you
metal,
can't
and
sing, you're just using it as a crutch kind of a
yeah.
thing.
Little do I
Instead of
realize,
like using it as a cool way to change the sound of her voice kind of a thing.
yeah, and that like I look back on that and I'm just like, it's people experimenting. I mean, sure, some people used it to cover up
Oh yeah.
bad voice.
And some people still have bad voices with it while trying to
Yeah,
cover up their bad voices. Fetty Wap.
but it's
What?
like people, huh?
I
Who
didn't
are
say
you?
anything.
No, it's fine. It's fine. It's totally cool. Just bashing on fucking random insert artist here that
Indeed.
you say their name, Jeremy.
Fetty Wap?
Fetty. What? You don't like Fetty Wap?
I don't like his voice.
I've never listened to Fetty Wap, so
And there you go.
maybe one day we'll review a Fetty Wap album.
Oh, we will
here.
if there's a person that wants to come on our podcast at some point, and I guarantee they will do a Fetty Wap album for
Are
us.
they gonna fucking defend Fetty Wap with their dying breath?
I think so. It was that or Chris Brown, and I vetoed the Chris Brown. So.
Well, looks like you're stuck with Fetty Wap, Jeremy.
But yeah, I don't know. This one, it's more like synthy, like you said. There's this really cool like mechanical pump sound for the beat on this one, like maybe like a heart rate monitor kind of beep thing, but it's more of like a pump, like an air pump kind of thing. I don't know how to describe it, but it just sounds like this kind of pumping air machine kind of a thing, and it perfectly fits the autotune vocals and the more like synthy music laid out behind it. Lyrically, this one's just more reflection on like who he is and who he was, but this one kind of seems a bit more like genuine and honest, and he's just kind of like venting and talking about what's going through his mind kind of a thing.
Yeah, this one he's kind of just like sad. I mean,
Yeah.
The name of the song pretty much tells it. Like he's just like, shit, dude, I'm coming to terms with all the terrible sadness I've been feeling, and I've been trying to escape it through one vice or another, and I just can't.
Yeah.
It's like I can't stand the daylight, and the therapy's not working. The problem was the burden and the worthlessness. Like just realizing the feelings, how you feel about yourself is you can't escape it. There's no
You're stuck with yourself,
yeah,
whether you like it or not.
Exactly. And now he's just like, well, I can't beat the sadness. So
yeah, and it's fucking the outro, like the last 3 lines of the song. He says, "Tonight will I die or will I come back? Tomorrow might be my comeback, and a mother wants her son back," kind of thing. So like, it's like him realizing that like, yes, he obviously needs to focus on himself and figure out who he is, but he's also focusing and like realizing that he's having an effect on people that clearly love him, kind of a thing. Because like, I don't know if I'm assuming his mother is still of the faith, and that's kind of like that's honestly that was like the hardest part of me dipping out of Christianity and my religion and stuff, is just like upsetting my parents about
yeah.
it, because like they very strongly like were of the belief kind of a thing, and that was just the hard. I think it was actually interesting, fun anecdote. It's not fun at all, I guess.
Oh yeah.
But I was in like middle school, I think, when I decided that I was done with church and stuff, and I couldn't bring myself to tell my mom or my dad in person. I sent my mom an email before going to school for the day. Like just like as I was getting ready to leave, I was like, I typed up an email, I sent it to her, and then I went about my day. And I didn't really like dwell on it the whole day, which was great. And then I came home and she was like, she had a talk with me, and it was just tears, just lots of tears, because she was like so disappointed and upset. And I was like, I was upset at myself for disappointing her, kind of thing. Because like, I don't know, parental like pride and like you never want to disappoint your parents ever, and
Yeah.
that's just like a human thing. But like, yeah, it was a day, and that's what that always reminds me of. And that line, just saying like, and a mother wants her son back, it kind of rings me a little bit, where
Yeah.
like knowing that my parents aren't necessarily satisfied with my decision about spirituality and religion.
Yeah, that's just like, I don't know, it's a really like, man, because that's like a really tough moment.
Yeah.
Like that just sounds like a moment that I would dread.
Right.
I just straight up don't really like. I've never had that conversation with my parents. We kind of
Really?
just exist
But I mean,
codependently.
so like, it had to happen, at least in my situation, because every week we'd go to church, right? My parents would like take me to church, and there was no way out of it, right? If I was living in this house, I was going to church, kind of a thing.
Yeah.
Obviously, that wasn't the case because we talked about it. I sent her the email and like I expressed myself, and they didn't force me to continue going to church.
Well, that's good.
But like, I feel like there would be no way for me to get out of going to church without explicitly saying that I don't believe in this faith.
Yeah, my mom is like, she definitely believes, but she's kind of under the impression that like I don't need to go to a place
Right.
to specifically, like, I don't need to go to a place of worship. I can worship or
In
just,
your own heart.
yeah, like I can, he knows. Big boy upstairs, he knows all. He
Yeah.
definitely knows how I feel. So like I kind of like, it was never a huge deal. I mean, we, especially whenever I went to like Catholic school, we went
Mm.
multiple times every week. And then it kind of just, my dad would go. And then I think they kind of got the hint whenever I was just like, I'm not going to go with you
Yeah.
one time. And then he was like,
Okay.
I could tell he was upset, but he
Right.
just went.
Yeah.
And we never really had the talk. And then I know at one point in recent, like maybe recent, I'm talking in the last 8 years, my mom mentioned in passing, like, I don't know if you believe or like what your beliefs are or whatever.
Right.
And I was just like, I'm not going to explicitly tell you because I still, in the deep pit of my heart, even as a 28-year-old
This
man,
is kind of embarrassing.
like, yeah, I'm just like, I don't want to have to say the words to you.
Right.
Like, and I don't know, have the implication that it's like, did we do something
Yeah.
wrong?
That's definitely another part of it. Like another facet of it is like you don't want them to think that they pushed you away from religion. Even
Yeah.
though I mean to some degree, at least in my scenario, like dragging me to church every week and forcing me to go there every week and not like not accepting no for an answer kind of thing. Obviously that kind of deterred me from it, but like I don't know. Definitely would not blame my parents for my lack of faith or my choice. It's just I'm an independent person, right? I mean,
Yeah.
granted, in middle school maybe I wasn't an independent person, but I still had my own thoughts, right?
Yeah.
And I still like felt strongly about it. So
And you still had to make up your own mind.
yeah, and if it ends in some doomsday scenario where the fucking Christians are getting yeeted up into heaven and the sinners are just dying down here, then I'll cross that bridge when I get there. You know,
Yeah.
I'll just live in that doomsday.
You won't cross any bridges because you'll be stuck here.
Yeah,
There will be no bridge to heaven. And also we'll be
there will be
stuck.
no UFO to suck me into the sky.
Yeah. We'll just be stuck listening to track number 13, Doomsday.
Yes, this one has a pretty big optimistic kind of like synth opening to it, where it's more back to like the upbeat. There's been a lot of sad boy tracks in the last half of this album, but this one kind of like brings it back to the energy level of like the beginning of the album. I thought it was interesting. I don't know if this was intentional or if this was me just like listening too hard into it, but the music in the chorus, the kind of chord progression reprises Loverboy a bit, but it's more like washed out and chill in the background. Just that kind of like that kind of a thing. Like it felt like it was kind of a reprisal of Loverboy from the first half of the album.
Yeah. I definitely got that feeling as well. Like it's kind of coming full circle. And that's another thing that I was like, I don't know if is
Yeah,
this album supposed to be a
it's
circular motion? Like,
it's the rise and fall and rise and fall and rise and fall and rise and fall of Loverboy.
yeah, like it seems like at the beginning he's doing okay, and then very much like not okay, and
Yeah,
then he like accepts that he's not doing okay,
right.
and then it like just go. I don't. Yeah, it's
Kind
just
of
a
ends
circle.
there.
Yeah, and I'm just like, what? Where's the resolution here? Like,
Yeah, this one, like you said, this is. It seemed like to me lyrically, this was him kind of coming to terms with his anxieties and his panic-ridden thoughts. You know, where he knows he's in an okay place and he knows that he's safe and that he's doing well, but he's still constantly like paranoid about shit and he's freaking out on the inside and he's kind of like asking for someone to help ground him and just remind him every now and then that it's okay to be happy sometimes. It's not always all doom and gloom,
it is a lot of the time, but
but not all the time.
not all the time. And those
At
are the
least
moments.
at least I guess you're allowed to be distracted from that,
Yeah.
because again, like, he talks not heavily, I suppose, but he does specifically call out like American politics and stuff in this album, and that's a big like anxiety point for him, just knowing that like there are very shitty people out there controlling the government and having such an influence, that like he kind of feels like he'll never be happy that way. And I think that's kind of what he's getting at in this song, is that like he's always going to have that in the back of his mind. He's never going to be okay with what's happening, but that doesn't mean that he can't also enjoy his life, kind of a thing.
Yeah, you gotta live for the moments and not like, I don't know, what is that? He probably learned it. I'm imagining he went to some sort of recovery program
Yeah.
from his drug problems or whatever, and they teach was the prayer of serenity. It's like, grant me the strength to shit. I already forgot it.
The strength to shit.
Yeah, the strength to shit. That's all I need. But it ends with the like being able to. It's essentially just like, let me be able to distinguish the things that I can change, have the strength to change them, and then like be able to accept the things that I can't, and not let those take
Right.
over my mind, I guess.
That
And
sounds like what he's saying in the song to me.
yeah, the Serenity Prayer. I think that's what it's called.
Yeah,
Something
it's
like
the
that.
alternate title for the song.
Yeah, Serenity Now. All you Seinfeld fans out there.
Ha 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 ha.
You totally watch
I
Seinfeld.
don't watch that. I've never watched an episode of my life. Track number 14, final track on the album, Birds,
Birds!
but with exclamation point.
Three of them.
Three of them instead of an I. Because, I mean, they're kind of like upside
Yeah,
down
they're
eyes.
upside. They're not even kind of like, they are upside down eyes.
They're kind of like upside down eyes. I'm not going to say that they are upside down eyes.
I am, and I'll die on that hill.
I guess Joey's going to die. Yeah, this one, it starts out with some kind of like ominous ambience and like a soft drum pattern, but then it kind of gets switched off and the acoustic guitar comes in to kind of save you from the impending doom. And there's some like birds chirping in the background. Eventually, a bass comes in, as well as kind of like the simple kind of click track kind of thing during the chorus. And then by the end of the chorus, the synths and the ominous sounds kind of creep in again, and the song resets a little bit, which I think it's like, musically at least, kind of symbolizing the back and forth between his mind, where like at times it's peaceful and he's able to like enjoy his life, but then inevitably it seems like the chaos and the paranoia takes over and he has to kind of like take a breath and pace himself and convince himself that it's okay, like he was kind of getting at in the last track, and just kind of moving forward despite it.
Yeah, this song, I think this is a good ending song for the album. He did well, because like you said, it kind of demonstrates the rise and fall and rise and fall and rise and fall
Yeah.
of his life, his mental stability. And it's got, you know, that super crisp acoustic guitar.
Yeah,
It's a good feeling.
I
Like
like it.
the whole song, it sounds, I don't want to say heavenly because of the subject matter of
Yeah,
this album. Like ethereal. We'll
there
go
you
with
go.
ethereal. Like, I like his voice a lot in this one, where it's like just him and the guitar, and then the music, it picks up, like you said, and it just kind of takes that cycle, and it's just nice. It's a good good song to end on.
Yeah,
I can talk.
can you? Do you
No,
know words?
I don't. I have no words, and I don't know words.
Lyrically, I think this one's like the darkest track on the album to me. Well, maybe Numb's pretty bad too, but like this one, it seems like Landon, and I kind of hyper focused, I think, on drug abuse in this one, where it seemed like he's talking about the fear of relapsing and falling back onto hard drugs because it's all he knows and it's the only thing that can like warm him and calm him, and the weight of his decisions that he's made is kind of like crashing down, and he kind of implies that he knows he's going to go back to using, kind of a thing, at least is what I was getting from it. And that he was like, yeah, I thought it's very, very poetic. I think he says, hanging upside down for or I guess I'll read the whole thing there. It says, mirrored eyes are swollen, hanging upside down for 7 months. The past is closing in on future track marks, which is just like, I don't
You
know. It's
know,
very elegant, but it
yeah,
definitely implies that he's going to be using in the future. At least that's how he feels.
yeah. Like this one, this is even more evidence that this is a cycle. And I mean, I guess saying the rise and fall doesn't necessarily imply that there is one rise and one fall.
Right.
But that's kind of
the ebb and flow.
Yeah, that was my initial take on the album's title, where it's like, I don't know, there's like the rise and the fall of Hobo Johnson albums,
right?
Where it just
They're
makes me think
two distinct storylines, kind of a thing.
Yeah, and it was like, I think it's going to be the rise and the fall, and this is where the last track, where Doomsday, was the acceptance that he's going to have those anxieties, he's going to, I don't know, feel bad, and he just is accepting it and learning to live with it. This is the acceptance that shit's going to get crazy again, that he is going to go back into his past habits and then have to dig his way out again and make those realizations all over again.
Which is, it's kind of like very interesting lyrically, because it ends saying, when starting over, like the chorus of it ends, when starting over feels like finished, which is kind of like, it's I'm not sure I fully understand that line, but it definitely, I mean, when starting over feels like finished, it's kind of like bringing both ends of the circle together, right? Because you're starting over, like you're starting anew, you're back at the beginning, but it feels like you're already done, kind of a thing, which is kind of maybe tying into the cyclical nature of the rise and the fall, and the rise and the fall, kind of a thing.
But you're never done.
You're never done.
Never. You're never getting off this ride.
Until you die, I guess.
Yeah, I guess that's true.
Speaking of death, what are we listening to next week?
We're listening to an album.
Nothing to do with death, but that I'm aware of. It could be. Are we listening to You're Dead again by Otis?
Yep, that's my only pick for the rest of the entirety of this podcast. But no, we're listening to the album Gossamer by Passion Pit.
Hell yeah.
And I like it, and there was just a point in, I guess, this album where I've been wanting to do it for a little bit.
Yeah, we've talked about it.
Yeah, and something about listening to this album, I was just like, I want it. I want to listen to it. Let's do it.
Hell yeah. So, I'm down for it, because I've not dived.
I don't know.
I have not dove into Passion Pit. The Passion Pit. I've not jumped headfirst into the Passion Pit, but I know I've heard some of their songs, and they've come up on like Discovery playlists, and I've always enjoyed them. So I've been meaning to get around to it, and this is as good a time as any to
your reason
check
to
out some Passion Pit.
It's your reason to be like Hoobastank.
Yes. Anyways, if you guys hated the fact that we talked about losing religion for half of this episode, let us know in Twitter and Facebooks and comments and stuff like that. We're not going to change anything about it. I just want to know. I'm curious. I apologize if you found it distasteful how we discussed it, but
I don't
regret it. I'm just saying.
Yeah,
as a listener, I know if you came here to listen to a fun, jovial discussion about an album, then maybe it was sullied by us going off so hard on Christianity. But it's part of who we are, and obviously it was part of this album. So
keep your politics out of music.
Ugh, that's a whole other thing.
I knew that'd get you.
But yeah, let us know how you felt about this episode. Listen to Passion Pit's Gossamer with us this week, and we'll be back again next week to discuss it, as we are stuck forever in this feedback loop with you. Standard feedback loop.
Bye.